Hey guys, just Betamax Man here. Up for repairs is a Sony HFR30. The R in the model number stands for Beta Hi-Fi Ready. So that's why it says HFR, which stands for Hi-Fi Ready, meaning that you would buy a Beta Hi-Fi processor to hook up to it, and that would give you a hi-fi stereo sound. This has got a issue, and the issue is the STK5441. So I'll show you what's going on here. We have no power light. It thinks the thing is on, but it's not. It's got the tape speed has come on, but there's no power light. Well, it's not getting voltage to the mechanism. So we're going to take the old one out. We'll replace it. I did order two regulators. They're supposed to be coming in the mail, but I'm impatient. I'm very impatient, so I decided to rob the STK5441 out of a parts deck that I have. This is a very common problem with the 711B chassis. Here's what would happen if you would have a power surge, and that causes these things to blow. When these things go out, they just go out. A lot of times what happens is these machines, when that happens to them, people just either store them in a closet somewhere, or they store them in a mini storage unit. So this was a common problem. So we're gonna get into it, tear it apart, and we'll put the regulator in there, and we'll see if it has any other issues. It may have other issues, I'm not really sure. But we are going to do the video. We're going to unplug it now. I'm gonna let it unplug for about 30 minutes because I want to make sure that the power supply is discharged. So I think I'm going to wait like maybe an hour. But I'm going to go ahead and get the screws off. I'm going to take the top off. And we're going to get it up and going. This is one that I purchased, and I got it for $100, including shipping. So this machine will, once it's fixed, it will sell for $200. It'll be probably $150, $200. I haven't really decided yet. I try to give people a good deal on beta machines. So usually I sell them for $150 to $200, unless it's a really high-end model like 1000 or 750. Then I charge more for them. Now, a lot of studio companies want these things because they're transferring tapes for people. So they need machines that have been refurbished to transfer tapes for people, because this is how a lot of people now are making their living. With the coronavirus making more and more people out of work, this is one of the ways that people can bring money into their home. It's something that I do as well. I also do transfers, and it does help the fact that I have the knowledge and the know-how to repair these machines. If mine breaks, I just fix it. I don't worry about it. But other people, when they're broken, they usually will have it sent to a different, sent to a repair guy, or they try to repair it themselves, and sometimes they can repair it themselves, and sometimes they can't. So we're going to get into this, so let me get the top off, we'll get the power supply out, and then we'll solder our new regulator. This is one I robbed off of another one. I had a part stack, HFR30, that this regulator came out of. It was a part stack. I robbed the heads out of it. I robbed the, oh yeah, I think I robbed the cassette housing out of it. I don't remember, but I had 3 of the HFR30s. I had 3 of them, and 2 of them, I took the one to make 2 good ones. So now I took the regulator out of it, so the power supply is still good, so I can put a regulator back in it once I get them in the mail, but I was impatient, so I just took a used one. So let's get started. Okay, we've got the power supply out. I'm going to go ahead and put the VCR up there out of the way, and we're going to work on the power supply. We'll get that thing fixed, and then we'll see what other issues it may have. We may go into the preamp and recap it, because the head amp sometimes can give, if there's 1 or 2 caps that are bad or going bad, it can cause poor picture quality. So that's the reasoning for going into the head amp and recapping it, is to make sure that the picture quality is really, really good. So it literally has 3 wires that disconnects, and you have to take the screws out of the back of that thing to get this thing off. So, and what we'll do here is get this thing, we got to get the circuit board off so that I can get to the regulator. So I'm just looking to see how this one comes apart so that I can get it it's kind of hard to get into this particular one, but you can get into it. It just takes a little bit of time because I've never worked on this particular model before, so I'm just kind of looking at it and deciding how it comes apart, looking at it so I can see how it comes apart. But the regulator is going to be inside this housing area right in here, so I'm going to get that out as well. Then we can lift off the chip here. So I can see the regulator, it's down in there. And I can go ahead and we're going to take the screws off there. And we'll take the I've got a lot of boards. This power supply is a little bit hard to work on, but once you get to the regulator, it's pretty simple. So that's the only thing, is to get to that. I've got one screw down there that needs to come out. Should come out now. Yeah, there she goes. And then there's the orange wire, which I'm not gonna unplug it right now. Or yeah, I am. Okay. All right. There's that. Let's put my screws in a little bin here so I don't get them mixed up with the other screws that I have. I got my iron nice and hot, so we'll go ahead and get this regulator out of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unsolder the, there's another screw. Sorry guys, I'm trying not to move the camera. But we'll get to it now. We'll just start unsoldering the old one, and we'll put the new one in. When I was taking that used regulator out of the donor power supply, I accidentally touched the leads and bent them. So it's going to be a little hard to get the new one in, but I can do it. Now I could have waited a few days till I got the new one, but you know what? That new one can go for another machine. So alright, now it's got my little solder sucker and my solder here. Alright, let's get this thing out of here. So I'm just gonna unsolder these tips. Some of you may have a nice fancy tool to remove solder with, but I don't, so I'm going to have to use the pump. And for the soldering in these, you really need like a really fine tip. looks like it was partially plugged there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the tip off. I'm going to cut the old one off. There it goes. Just popped out. Where did it go? I'll find it later. Just popped out somewhere, so somewhere on the floor. I'll get it later. So what I'm going to do now is take my little pliers and we'll just try to just pull the lead thread out. Okay, this one's got to be warmed up a little. The solder sucker sometimes it's a little tricky to get these leads out of here, but Yeah, well, I need to invest in a good solder remover, because they have those guns that heats it up, melts it, and then it sucks it up. Okay, so we got the old one out. Now all I gotta do is put the new one in. I had to heat the pins individually until I got them all out, which I do. All of them are out. So I sprayed it with a little contact cleaner so that it would be nice and clean and I could see what's going on. So I can see, yeah, they're all good. So every one of them's good. So it's ready to install the new chip. So the chip, the used one that I took out, the pins are a little bit out of alignment, so probably gonna have to use my dental pick and move the pins one by one until I get them in place. Now once the pins are lined up and pushed through the hole, then I can solder it in, and then we'll put the power supply back together and we'll see what other issues, if there are any other issues with the VCR. Got it in. Now all we gotta do is I just gotta solder this in, and we'll start putting the power supply back together, and we'll start getting that going. The tip that I have, I'm not a huge fan of. But it's the only one I have right now. There we go. I'm just going to inspect my joints here just to make sure I've got the joints nicely soldered. And most importantly, just make sure that they're done good. So, okay, guys, let's get this thing back into the machine. One thing I want to mention: just make sure you put a little heatsink compound on there, because if you don't put the heatsink compound on there, this regulator will get hot and it'll burn it out. So just make sure you have heatsink compound. It's also called thermal grease is another name for it, because if you go to buy this online, sometimes they say heatsink compound, sometimes they'll say thermal compound. So just make sure that you just want to apply a nice thin, you don't have to have a thick coat, just a nice thin coat evenly throughout the chip. This is also the time to go ahead and wipe out your dust. Just clean the thing out while you're at it. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to start getting some of this dust wiped out. I've already wiped out some of it, but I still have more dust to clean. So, you know, it doesn't hurt to clean things, you know. And while I'm in here, I might as well check the capacitors as well. These are those Elna capacitors, so they're always bad. But these ones don't appear to be leaking or anything like that, so I'm just going to check them with my multimeter just to make sure that they're okay, and if I need to replace any of the capacitors, I will do that now while I have the thing apart. So I did find one capacitor that was bad, so I'm going to go ahead and replace that. I'm going to check some of the other ones and see, but so far it was just one capacitor that I found that needed to be changed. And it's always a good idea to just, you know, just go ahead and change them, because you're already got the power supply apart, so it's probably a good thing to just go ahead and check that. So that's what we're gonna do here. So I'm going to replace any of the other ones that may need to be changed, and then we'll put it back into the machine over there, and we'll power it on, and we'll see what kind of progress we're making. Okay, we got the power supply in. We've got the connectors in the proper places. Now what I need to do is screw the screws back in and make sure, okay, it's going on the right side. Make sure that you got this piece behind here. If this is not behind the plate, you'll bend the metal piece here. So just make sure you put that back in the right spot. So I'm going to go ahead and put the screws in. I've already reconnected all the wiring. There's a little shield here that has to go on, so we'll put that on as well, and then we'll power it up, and we'll see what other issues we may need to repair on this. So let me get that done, and then we'll test it out. We'll plug it in now and we'll see what happens. So let's see if I fixed it. Okay, it's reset itself. And we now have a power light. got a cassette here. So we fixed that issue. I think it was having stiction problems. The tape was sticking to the drum. So I'm gonna clean that, and we'll get that going here. And we now have our VTR light is now on. So, and we can select the beta 2 or 3. We can counter, and so we may have more issues with this machine. So it's now much later in the day. I was taking a look at it. I just got done eating dinner, and I started working on this thing again. And I found out the reason why this thing was not working. It was due to a bad pinch roller. This pinch roller is very glossy. The pinch roller is so hard. This thing is hard as a rock. I even put rubber renew on it to try to soften it. It didn't do a thing. So I ended up replacing it. I put my replacement pinch roller, and it works good now. So we're gonna toss that. And this thing chewed my tape with that old pinch roller. So I'm gonna have to make a new test tape. But it works. And the only thing that I'm going to do is, we got forward rewind search, we got forward search, we have play, we have rewind, we have fast forward, Did you hear the when I was fast forwarding it? Did you hear that motor? It was going So it wasn't. It was humming. I was kind of. So it's like the servo is. I don't know. It's just kind of like the capstan or the motor. The motor might need to have. I think I'll replace the capacitors on the for the real table motor. Plus, I'll do a video on that. For right now, I'm gonna call this thing good. But let me put the tape in. So it's fine when it's playing, but when you hit fast forward, hear it? Listen. So at least it works now. But I think what I'm going to do is I'll put some new capacitors for the idler motor. And then we'll do a service on the reel table motor. So I think I'm going to do that. And because it just didn't sound quite right when it was fast forwarding. And before I got it to where it's working the way it is now, I had trouble with the rewind. Like, it was rewinding for a second or two and then it would stop. So that's why I'm thinking that maybe capacitors will need to be changed on the reel table motor, and then we'll do a service, a full service on the reel table, and then I'll clean the heads, of course, too. I'm going to clean the drum in the heads and tape path and all that. We'll do that. But I think doing that will definitely get this thing to where it's going to be in perfect condition. Because right now, we put that used regulator in there, and it works. So it's powered up. I put a new pinch roller in there. So that new pinch roller is working good. It's not in the greatest shape either, but getting a pinch roller for these machines is going to be almost impossible as far as a new one. I'm sure there are people online that sell used pinch rollers. And there's nothing wrong with using a used part as long as it works, you know. But the issue is that the used pinch rollers can have the same symptom, you know, that you could be buying a used pinch roller and it could have the same problem. And when you put rubber renew on it and it doesn't do anything, you know you got a bad pinch roller. So I am going to put rubber renew on this one to soften the rubber up a little bit more. The rubber is actually nice and soft, but I'm just going to put a little rubber renew on there. That way the used part that I just put in will last for quite a long time. So this thing should be up and going, and this thing shouldn't really have any other problems. You know, I'm not really going to do a video on the servicing, I don't think, because I've done, I have a video on an SL100 where I did the full service on the reel table. So if you want to see that video, I would suggest clicking on that. But I'm not going to do a video on the servicing because I've already done a video on this same 711B chassis. I do have an SL2500 that I'm bidding on, and if I win it, we'll have that, because I want to get I need the motor. One of the motors is bad, and I need a motor for the 2500 that I have. I have an SL2500 that needs a new motor that threads the tape around the drum. But this one's working now, so I'll put the caps in there, do a service on the reel table. I'll check. I'm gonna check some of the capacitors I might replace the capacitors in the servo, because it's got just a little bit of a servo issue. It's not bad enough to. It's not one that's gonna keep it from playing tapes, but it's kind of having some issues with when it was in rewind. You could hear it where the motor would go, woo, 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 you know, that high pitched and then lower, you know, you could hear the hesitation. So the servo is going to be right in here. This is where the servo is. So I am going to change out these caps, I think, for the servo. I think I'll try that first. I don't know if I'm going to put new caps in that motor. I might just replace the caps in the servo circuitry, and then we'll see if the problem is still there. But I can see this light blue Sanyo capacitor. For some reason, the light blue Sanyo capacitors fail. And also the Elna capacitors. The Elna capacitors are shit. I mean, they just are not very good capacitors. So, every Elna or light blue Sanyo cap that I've come across is usually always bad, or it's going bad, or it's leaking. I've had a lot of the Elnas that have been leaking, just peed all over the board. So, but the servo is going to be, let's see, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see, 2, 4, 6. There's about 7 or 8 capacitors in the servo. So I've already got the board loose, so I can go ahead and take I can lift the board up here, and I can get to the capacitors on the servo. So I'm gonna replace the caps on the servo board first, and then if it still makes that noise when it's rewinding or fast forwarding, then I'm gonna go and replace the caps for the idler. But at this point, I don't think I'm gonna replace those. I'm gonna try this first. But for right now, for this video, it's gonna end this video. So I thought I'd show you the deck with the top back in place. So I'm also gonna take care of these scratches. I have stuff called Novus, and you do 3, 2, and 1, and it gets rid of most of the scratches. Some of the scratches will come out, and then the Novus will make it shiny, and it'll put a protective coating on it. So the cleaner does cleaning, but it also puts a nice shine, like a waxy type coating on it to keep it from, you know, getting scratched in the future. But I really like the Novus cleaner, because this thing is, it really is going to make this thing look like a new machine again. But yeah, so see you later.